Gamer here. Day 4 of 11 Days of Remembrance. Alright, if you see a veteran, thank them. Alright, now I'm gonna do the next chapter. The Fall of France. French and British armies overwhelmed. Hitler's first planned date for the invasion of France had been 12th November 1939 to the honor of the German generals who made statements effect to dissuade him. Bad weather reported delayed the project. Then a freak accident forced him to cancel it. A liaison officer to the German airborne forces, Commander-in-Chief flying from Manchester to Bern, was forced down by appalling weather miles off course, instead in Belgium. The papers he was carrying with him failed to destroy before capture, with the complete plans for the invasion of France, and the Belgians handed those over to the Allies. It had been suggested that Nazi leaders were victims of a troubled plot by German intelligence to that of the invasion. Either way, the whole officials in fact, the new plan was the brainchild of the young General Erich von Richthofen, who suggested a strike through the Ardennes. Hitler admired that idea so much that he came to believe he had thought of it himself. The Dutch military in Berlin received a tip-off on May 9, 1940, that an invasion was imminent tomorrow at dawn. Hold tight, he said back to the Hague. But when Hitler attacked Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France simultaneously the following morning, the Dutch Foreign Minister Egon von Kefler was still debating with his colleagues what should be done. German airborne forces attacked Hague and Rotterdam, overwhelming the Dutch border defenses to the east and seizing the main bridge in the center of Rotterdam by seaplane. 4 days later, Rotterdam was still holding out, but when they were negotiating a surrender, they were bombed heavily from the air. Approximately 980 civilians were killed. 2 hours later, the city authorities gave way. When the French 7th Army arrived in support 5 days later, it found that over 100,000 Dutch soldiers had already surrendered. The German attack on Holland was a complete success, a surprise thrust towards the Hugh airfield to capture the Dutch government, which escaped with the Dutch royal family by British destroyer to London. Germany had at the siege only 4,500 trained paratroopers, and nearly all were used in the attack on Holland. The remaining paratroopers were used in Belgium. The number arranged by dummies dropped to spread panic. A strike force of 85 paratroopers landed on the roofs of heavily defended Fort Ibn Bud, which granite lay through the Albert Canal, and it lost only 5 men. Others captured by key bridges to allow German divisions to drive deep into Belgian territory. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. Churchill told a somber British House of Commons 3 days later, while the attention of Allies was diverted by the paratroop raids. The ruined German panzer commander Hans Gudrun was heading through Luxembourg towards the Andres heavily wooded terrain, which had been dismissed as impossible by British, French, and other German military experts alike. He took him with the greatest concern that tanks ever seen in war. 4 days after the start of the offense, he generated the news. The Allied mobile divisions were deep inside Belgium and fighting. There were only a few equipped French tank division outer the grain. Most graduated with a 12 squadron defense. Even Hitler had been expecting French on low exposed flank power north of the division before we lost the battle. Women told Churchill on the phone on May 15th. Churchill flew to Paris to day roadway south, blocking refuge and avenge 8 attempt and the 10 fighter squadrons of promote block. The young Brigadier Charles de Terre was sent to test out the towing rank. On the 17th of May, he was harried by dive bombers. His 150 tanks were pushed back to Lyon, but after his brave stand, he asked to join Vernon government under secrecy for war. I felt like throwing up Liverpool. He wrote, "It's too stupid. If I live, I fight through. I must. Long as the nation stand is clear." By 20th May, Gudrun had reached the sea at Erzurumville, turning towards the Channel ports, and the British army, which faced the German divisions for the other flank. Erzurumville was then 10 miles from Dunkirk, the last point of escape for the British troops. Garrison held their defense. Tank battalion, the French arrived in support. Only 2 tanks were left in working order, and the British were forced to pull back. Even so, German high command had reached a scale, and the army was ordered to surprise advance cockade its guns, or the German halt would have returned were pulling. Hitler or Frederick passed the Britain, we shall never know for sure, but whatever the reason, the destruction of British and French forces at Dunkirk was left in the hands of George Luftwaffe. It failed to complete the job. The 3-day pause in the German advance was the British needed to escape. On the evening of 25th of May, George decided to stop issued by his new Supreme Commander Reinhardt to hold first to the order of the British cabinet. The evacuation from the beaches of Dunkirk. The Belgians, meanwhile, had been fighting deeply in the confirmed by refugees and sketch maps of their Polish situation dropped by German planes. The battle which had forced the Belgian King Leopold to his troops, but insisted from the British to hang on until their escape. Leopold announced a surrender on 20th of May. The Belgian government, now in Paris, resorted to accept the king's decision, but there was just enough long to save the airboat. Churchill was preparing people for the worst. The Royal Navy added by 860 pleasure boats, fishing max, canal bridges, and 200,000 British and 140,000 French soldiers to England. The evacuation was hailed as a victory of sorts by the British, but seen as a betrayal by the French command, who legally returned and 100,000 fighters planes. The troops in their turn, many as 150,000 French troops in their captured Chile. Some were captured at Burgos on 14th of June. The German marched along the capital Paris. Churchill, Halifax, and mainly Bergerac towards the 13th of June with an 84-year-old hero veteran Richard Pecheron. On the 21st of June, Pecheron asked the Germans for Anderson. When he heard the request, Hitler faced the terms in 1918 with him. Nazis fearing of Pecheron's freight relations had to be made. Pecheron broke off diplomatic relations with Britain and ordered a symbolic bombing of the island group of rangers to the French defeat. As a school teacher said, Britain, who allowed Pierre Laval and Roberto de Rito for the next 4 years, the Vinny government seated between the extreme of Nazi policies and the burden of France came to be known as her own. The French army had been all but destroyed and France itself divided, such as what, in victory, the Hitler became convinced his armies were impossible as okay. In Russia and North Africa, Leon lost less over 10 million civilians had been dispersed, and in Western Europe, the belongings of the Luftwaffe and across the English Channel through the end of the miracle of Dunkirk, it was slowly drawn off the British. Nothing stood between Hitler and the European domain but 23 miles of seawater. Alright, that's it for day 4 of 11 Days of Remembrance. I thank the veterans for fighting in World War II and World War I so I could do my videos and have free speech and opinions. Thank you, and thank you to the veterans. If you see a veteran, walk up to them and say thank you. Well, that's all for me for right now. This is Common Gamer signing off. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and hit the like button. And thank you to the veterans.